Margita Ganesha. There are two words in this title, one which refers to Ganesha, the deity of the season, and the other is Marga. Margita is the seeking, that which is sought after. So one could take it that today we are going to seek Ganesha, his form and his essence, through two art forms, being music and sculpture. But the other way in which to look at this is that Ganesha will today become our marga, our way of understanding what is marga. Because what we know today as classical art forms, it's an English word. For practitioners of traditional arts and crafts, it becomes slightly problematic. Classical does not describe half the things that happen in the creation of a form in traditional arts. My only skill at whatever little level is in Carnatic music, and hence I use it to understand this idea and to share with you what I know. Elders say that the material with which we form things only matters a little. It is the way in which one engages with the material that makes all the difference to the kind of form that is created. And hence, in Indian knowledge systems, Vishaya is important, but not as much as the Vidhi. It is the manner in which one engages in the art, in the practice, that determines what form comes out of it. And further to this, traditional arts and crafts in India have been embedded in a very psycho-spiritual understanding of form itself, which is, we see all around us, we will form beautiful shapes in the form of Ganesha and Durga and then go and do a Visarjan and destroy the form. It is in the destruction of something that you make and you get very attached to that one's creative spirit and energy evolves. So, in music, Marga has a very specific definition in our literature. Sangeeta Ratnakara has a certain definition for what Margiya Sangeeta means. There is Margiya Sangeeta and there is Deshiya Sangeeta. Margiya Sangeeta is something that is supposed to have been enjoyed by the Deva and the Gandharva and so on and so forth. And Deshiya Sangeeta is that which we create here amongst us to our liking, investing our qualities in it. In my simple understanding, what I have learned from my elders is that when we take the path of Margiya Sangeeta, we are given a certain set of qualities to absorb. When we sing about these qualities, when we understand these qualities over and over again, we are given a chance to imbibe these qualities in us. In Deshiya creation, it is for happiness, yes, truly. We give the form that we create, the qualities that we think are beautiful. So yesterday we were on the road and we saw a Ganesha made out of football and hockey sticks and flavor of the season, Ganesha. There's no judgment on it. But in this society, we have always moved from, Guruji will speak about it so beautifully. He says that Margiya or Shastriya art forms are a reflection of the kind of challenges that a society takes up. And the greatest challenge that this society has taken on itself for thousands of years, and a few people have probably managed to attack the challenge in the face, is the great spiritual challenge of resolution of the self, dissolution of the self. So all the things that we are given in traditional arts are tools to do this. What happens in Sangeeta? In Sangeetam, Shastriya Sangeetam or Margiya Sangeetam or whatever as we know it, in Carnatic Sangeetam, we are given a lot of compositions of people who are called Vaggeyakara. Vaggeyakara are people who have produced verse and music spontaneously at one given point in time within the stringent parameters of grammar, using technique, musical technique, grammatical technique and aesthetic technique as the tool to chisel the idea and present it in a very sweet and evocative way. So for the listener, it sounds very effortless. It sounds very sweet. It's something that is so enjoyable. For the learner, it's an extraordinary challenge. And I think for the composer or the creator, it would have been the Marga. So I am sitting here somewhere in the middle, actually suffering the challenge. But you are in a position to enjoy what we will present here. Because once you take on the challenge of learning a composition of Muthuswami Dikshita, today most of the compositions we will be presenting are in Sanskrit and they are composed by Muthuswami Dikshita. He was a yogi, he was a saint, a Sri Vidya Upasaka, well versed in Shilpa Shastra, Agama Shastra, Tantra Shastra, all kinds of technologies of spirituality and material culture. And in the last program, many of you were there, and in the last event we saw, we took a tour of temples, 6 temples, and it was fascinating the way each of them had been created and all the kind of things that were packed into a little physical space. Muthuswami Dikshita packs that physical space with all its complexity in a little song. So it becomes a double challenge for us because we understand something, we have to imbibe the qualities of what he is saying and then be able to sing it. And today, if I am not able to share that experience with you, it's my failure, not yours. Because in the path of Marga, there is only striving. There is only a difficulty. A little note I want to give before I start. Some of the compositions that we have learnt and we will be presenting is from a text called Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, which is a very important text for Carnatic music because it's a 100-year-old text which has notated, which has, as Guruji was rightly pointing out this morning, that he has created a script for the movement of music, which is the gamaka. Normally in a notated form you only see notes, but these notes are not notes. If one goes back into even a work like Sangeeta Ratnakara, I'm sorry if I'm going deep into music, but I just want to say this very briefly before we start singing. Notes as frequencies. The Saregama Padanisa, there's nothing sacred about the names. They are just frequencies and they occur somewhere in the range of frequencies that we know, that the human ear can recognize. And it is supposed, this civilization believes that all frequencies have a certain psycho-spiritual effect on the mind. So music is something that readily affects you. Sound is something that very readily and very overwhelmingly affects us, affects the mind. And hence the frequencies that we choose as swaras, very important. And hence when a Vaggeyakara, somebody who has an ingenious capacity to pack music and verse together, picks a certain raga, chooses a certain phrase, and builds into it a certain nuance, it means something. It is not a random event. And hence we have taken a lot of pains to sit with this book and with my guru, my mother Sangeeta Kalanidhi Srimati R. Vedavalli, and with great difficulty we have learnt a few pieces which we will share with you today. So here marga for us is in mastering the technique, because technique gives the proportion to the form of what we want to present. This actually you will see much better in a art form like sculpture. It is much harder to understand and appreciate in a form like music, which is why I thought keeping this side by side, one can actually start thinking about what proportion and aesthetics actually means to the mind. So through the marga of Ganesha today, we shall look at these two art forms. Gananayakam bhajeham bhaje Gananayakam bhajeham bhaje Kamalesha Kamaripusutam Gananayakam bhajeham bhaje Kamalesha Kamaripusutam Gananayakam bhaje. The first thing about Ganesha, if one wants to visualize this deity, is Sumukha. Somewhere else he says Raudra Bhava Hina. He has Veera, he has Dhira, but he does not have Raudra. He is the most pleasing presence that one can have. And that is why probably we feel free to do anything at all with him. Because we are absolutely sure there will not be a negative response to it. He is just incapable of it. So, Sumukham. But Ganesha also, we'll build up the story of Ganesha, and we are not going to do the obvious stories today of how his head got cut and all that we know. In the tradition of what Adi Shankaracharya did, they say there is the 6 forms of worship that he established, but there is also another version that there were only 5, and Ganapatya was not part of it. It is a version. The others being Vaishnava, Shaiva, Shakta, Shaurya, Kaumara, and Ganapatya. These are the 6. So there are many stories in which Ganesha is only a very, very powerful guardian of people. In fact, there are stories, there are versions of songs and narratives where Ganesha is one of the guardians of directions or guardians of, a village, a form of a very powerful Grama Devata. But Ganesha and Anjaneya, Maruti, Hanuman are these only two deities who are supposed to have gained the 8 siddhis, Anima, Garima and so on. There are 8 siddhis. So these Animadi Siddhi Dayakam, he is capable of giving it to people very easily. But he himself is somebody who has risen from being a powerful guardian to a most popular god by the easy attainment of many things such as the Animadi Siddhi. This is a very important visualization for a person who is trying to understand Ganesha. That he is not a person who just awoke one day and was a god, or whose beginnings and ends we do not know, or who was created for the samhara of a certain Rakshasa or something. He was created to be a guardian, but then he attains the position of a very, very popular and a very, very accessible god because of the ease with which he is able to attain all these things. So there are several siddhis that are, in the scriptures, we need not go into it, that allow you to do very many superhuman things and super rational. So you exist in a super rational dimension which we don't normally approach. So this is the thing that I wanted to point out in this song. Animadi Siddhi Dayakam Sumukham. Although he has all these great powers, his greatest quality that we are able to relate to is the fact that he is Sumukha. He is a very pleasant being. And this is the quality that perhaps we can imbibe. Mudakarat modagam sada vimukti sadakam kaladharat Vatsakam vilasilo-karakshakam Anayakaikanayakam Anayakaikanayakam Vinashite bhadaityakam Nata shubhashuna Shakam namamitam vinayakam varasiddhi vinayaka sumukha varasiddhi vinayaka Sumukha varasiddhi vinayaka Sumukha varasiddhi vinayaka Sumukha varasiddhi vinayaka Sharana Anayakaika Nayakam, Vinayaka. Nayaka could mean a father, he has no father. But he has no lordship also. He is the Lord. But then he is a Vamana. He doesn't even possess the form of a Lord. He doesn't inspire any sort of, in our imagination, what a Lord should be. No rippling muscles, no nothing. He's a portly, corpulent person who's sort of dawdling around and sitting on a mouse and so on. But it is these dualities that make us think that perhaps what we think in our mind to be powerful and what we think in our mind to be the qualities of, overlordship, maybe we should rethink. That maybe these are not the things that are important to really be influential and powerful and be popular and so on. This is the kind of visualization that Muthuswami Dikshita helps us gain. But these are simple things. We are now building the form, which is building the form. Then we build the significance of everything that he holds in his form. And then we move on at a later stage to a little deeper things that Ganesha represents. Maybe if we get interested later in life, we could probably go and look into it and meditate it. It's not a study really. One cannot really read a book and understand these things. It becomes very difficult to do that. One, of course, intellectually makes a long checklist and says, okay, now I'm done with Ganesha, let me move on to Kumara. But it doesn't work like that. You have to really see what qualities are there around you and what suit you. And this is the thing that is at the basis of even the classification that Adi Shankara would have given. That there are certain qualities that suit certain people. And hence you evoke those qualities by everything that you do. So when you go to a Vaishnava household, for instance, everything in that house reminds you of the fact that this household and this person is devoted to the qualities of Vishnu. If you go to the household of a Shakta worshipper, everything in that household, everything about that person, the way he dresses, to the way he speaks, to everything. Of course, in modern life, we don't bump into such people very easily, but of course, we bump into other margas. Now, of course, the marga of football is going on, so even Ganesha takes on the quality of. So, Pune city is now dedicated to the qualities of football and so on. So, this is there all around us. But the set of qualities that we choose is always in our hands. And this freedom has been given to us in a very structured manner in this civilization. This freedom and this facility, I would say, it's an institutional facility available to us.